The film kicks off in 1967 in Inwood, New York City, at a classic old-school bar nestled in a northern Manhattan neighborhood. Chicky, a merchant mariner sporting a magnificent mustache, walks in to join his pals, carrying 2 brimming jugs of beer after buying the next round for the group with his friend's money. Upon his return, Chicky is taken aback when one of the men teasingly labels him a freeloader. Undeterred, Chicky, with a twinkle in his eye, smoothly leverages his friend's name to keep the beers flowing, instructing the bartender to chalk it up to Brandon's tab. The next morning, Chicky is found passed out in his room, where he lives with his family. He's rudely awakened by his father, who scolds him for being a lazy drunkard. In a sarcastic reply, Chicky jokes,
"Stay awake when I'm dead."
But his father, undeterred, persists in waking him up, insisting that it's time for church. After enduring a series of newspaper slaps, Chicky begrudgingly gets himself up from his cozy bed and joins his parents for Sunday Mass. With all the enthusiasm of a sloth on a Monday, Chicky plops himself outside the church and reads the news. Just as the final hymn plays out of the church, Chicky quickly hurries in, attempting to blend in as if he'd been a model attendee the whole time. After enduring church, the family returns home for lunch, and Chicky is greeted with yet another round of scolding from his father. In a hopeless attempt to defend himself, Chicky explains to his father that being a merchant mariner is no cakewalk, stating that family time is his only chance to unwind. When Chicky's mother attempts to stop the infighting, his angry father declares that Chicky is living under his roof and that if he wants to act like a drunk, he should find a new place to do it. While Chicky entertains the idea, his mother reminds him that it would just be a waste of money. Feeling like his mother is coddling him, Chicky's father expresses his concern, recounting how he had a job, a wife, and 3 kids at Chicky's age. With a touch of sarcasm, Chicky fires back.
So it's my fault you knocked up Mount High School.
Chicky! We got pregnant after we were married.
Oh, come on, Ma. You got married in January. Gerard was born in June. It don't add up.
It was a leap year.
Amidst the heated argument, Chicky's sister Christine bursts in and announces that a friend of theirs has passed away after being deployed to war. Despite the family's attempts to console her by emphasizing that the young man died in service to his country, Christine appears to be inconsolable, exclaiming that
we don't even know why we're fighting over there.
In the town, the bartender Colonel lowers the flag after the community receives the heartbreaking news of the loss of 8 of their children. Inside his bar, Chicky and his friends have gathered to mourn the tragedy. As they watch the grim scene unfold on TV, Colonel remarks to the boys that the government shouldn't be airing this, reflecting on his own time in the service.
War is not a TV show. It's too real life.
And the American people can't handle real life.
No, they can't, and they shouldn't have to. Bringing dead soldiers, guys with no arms and legs, into our living rooms is not helping no one. If they had showed the Battle of the Bulge on TV, we'd have quit after 3 days.
Later, Chicky and his friends attend the wake. During their conversation, Chicky and the gang receive the news that Tom Minogue, a close friend of Chicky's, is missing in action. Shocked by the news, Chicky leaves and recalls how he helped Tom to see the ball drop on New Year's Eve.
10 minutes, we're gonna miss it, Chick.
Don't worry about it, Tommy. It'll drop again next year.
Yeah, but I've never seen it. Only on TV.
All right, come on, let's go.
The next morning, Chicky and Red are strolling through the park when they spot Christine in an anti-war protest, chanting their mantra at the top of her lungs. Embarrassed by his sister's fervor, he attempts to pull her away, but she refuses to budge. Angry over what he perceived as thoughtless remarks, Chicky insists to Christine that their buddies were out there fighting for their country, even bringing up his own time in uniform.
Everyone's doing something, and you're doing nothing.
I served 4 years in uniform, starting when I was 18 years old.
You were playing poker at a military base in Massachusetts.
Eager to dodge the confrontation, he makes another attempt to remove her, only to be intercepted by another protester.
You and me, let's go.
I don't want to fight, man. This march is about peace.
Oh, the hell with your peace, come on.
Leading to a scuffle and giving Christine the chance to disappear. Later, Chicky and his crew gather at the bar for a few drinks. As they chat, Colonel mentions his desire to send some drinks to the boys overseas, sparking an idea in Chicky's mind.
I could do that.
Do what?
Bring in beer.
Are you serious? Of course he's not serious. He's hammered. Look at him.
When he notices his friend's skepticism, he reassures them that he's up to the task, vowing to deliver those beers so the soldiers know their neighborhood and country have their backs. The next day, Chicky's grandiose decision starts to sink in, and he begins to doubt himself, especially as the townspeople start pressuring him after hearing about his plan.
Chicky, when you're in Vietnam, you're gonna visit my son, right?
127th MP Company. See, it's right there on the patch on his shoulder. He'll be so excited to see a friend
friendly face.
Yeah, there's still a few kinks to iron out, Mrs. Collins. I don't even know if it's possible for me to get over there.
And when you see him, please give him a hug for me.
While hashing it out with his buddies, Red and Noodles, he has a sudden realization that his friends never really had faith in him, assuming that his promise to deliver was just another one of his empty promises.
Why do they think I'm not going?
What? No offense, but come on, chick. There's a lot of things you say you're gonna do that you don't get around to doing, because, you know, you get busy.
Feeling annoyed, Chicky heads home only to be taken aback by the fact that his family has also caught wind of his tall tale about going to Vietnam. His father and sister, not taking him seriously in the slightest, poke fun at the idea, assuming he must have been drunk when he came up with it. Irritated by their sarcastic jokes, Chicky gets up to answer the door, only to be stunned when he finds Minogue's mother standing outside. Her son went missing. Handing him a cross, she tells him to give it to her son when they find him.
No, please, Miss Minogue, you hold on to those. If I end up going, then I'll come and pick him up from you. Okay, I promise.
You see, Tommy said that he brought some. I bet he didn't.
The next day, Chicky marches over to the chief and inquires about any boats bound for Vietnam, hoping that there are no boats and he will finally have a credible reason not to go to Vietnam. To his amazement, the chief informs him that the cargo ship Drake is set to sail in a few hours. Struck by the coincidence, Chicky boldly asks if they need an oiler and is taken aback when he's told they're short-staffed.
But I doubt they need an oiler this late in the game.
Oiler. Hey, you're in luck. They're still one short.
Signing up for duty on the merchant ship, Chicky then proceeds to stash dozens of beers in the bag Colonel had given him. As Chicky makes his way out, Christine stops him and insists that this is a terrible idea. Undeterred, Chicky leaves his sister in tears and hops into the cab, showing his unwavering determination. Upon reaching the boat, Chicky pulls double shifts to Vietnam and then manages to persuade his commanding officer to grant him 3 days off the ship by spinning a sob story about finding his half-brother and telling him the news of his father's passing. Upon inquiring about his half-brother's whereabouts, the officer grimly informs Chicky that the area he's headed to is a total bloodbath and that he's risking his life. But Chicky is unfazed by the warning. Chicky's commander reluctantly grants him 3 days off, cautioning him to return promptly. As Chicky leaves the ship with his bag brimming with beer, he runs into some soldiers from Collins's regiment and eagerly shows them a picture of his friend while offering them some brews.
No, I'm being serious. This whole thing's full of beer from back home.
Hey, listen, smart mouth. You looking to take a swim?
No. Look, I ain't messing with you. I'm serious. Here. In fact, you know what? I got a couple for you, too.
Tickled by Chicky's gusto, they escort him back to the base and vouch for him, leading to a heartwarming reunion with Collins. After Collins introduces Chicky to his buddies in his regiment, the group gathers around for a game of poker and some beer. Their fun is abruptly interrupted by the squad's commanding officer, who fixes Chicky with a stern gaze and demands to know who he is.
I'm traveling around in Vietnam, and I'm bringing beers to as many of my friends from my neighborhood as I can.
Hearing his answer, the officer sternly nods and walks out, assuming that Chicky is a CIA agent.
He seems like an okay guy.
He's not.
Don't you get it? He thinks the man Don Ho here is a tourist.
What do you mean? I am a tourist.
Tourist is what we call CIA.
CIA, get the hell out of it.
Man, who else but CIA would be headed up country dressed like they're going on a golf trip?
No, Erickson's right.
Taking advantage of his new status, Chicky turns up the music, allowing the boys to have some fun. At the crack of dawn, Chicky starts brainstorming his next move to locate the rest of his friends. Suddenly, Collins snatches away his map and warns the others not to assist Chicky, lest they end up getting him killed.
Chicky, even if you wanted to do this, there's no way for you to get around. The only non-military people who can travel the country are the press.
Later, over a beer, Chicky persuades Collins to spill the beans on where to find the press so he can navigate his way around. On the way to the hotel, he's nearly hit by a car, but a traffic police officer helps him out. He can speak a little English, so he points Chicky in the direction of the hotel, and they make small talk. As Chicky arrives at the hotel where the press is staying, he stumbles upon a group at the bar, critiquing the American president's speech, claiming they were winning the war.
Whoa, hey. I don't appreciate that. That's the President of the United States you're talking about. He deserves some respect.
You expect us to respect the man who's telling the American people we're actually winning the war and that we, the media, are keeping it a secret?
If the shoe fits.
And the journalists view Chicky as a bit of an idiot for running his mouth off about things he clearly doesn't understand and subtly make fun of him.
I need to hop a plane to LZ Jane.
You know what? I think I can swing it. I could maybe book you a flight. What's your preference? You want like a window seat? Aisle?
Oh, I don't care.
Hey, you want to go first class? Meal service? Anything you want, kid.
Refusing to be discouraged by the journalist's mockery, Chicky hitches a ride to an airbase and manages to bluff his way into getting a lift by letting the captain assume he's with the CIA.
You the guy trying to get to LZ Jane?
Yeah, that's right.
You're civilian?
Yes, as far as you're concerned.
Oh, it's one of you guys. Why didn't you say so, Private? Put the gentleman's name in the manifest immediately.
Yes, sir.
Upon arriving at the second airbase, Lieutenant Habershaw warmly greets him and informs him that he's been instructed to assist him in any way possible. Chicky wastes no time and asks if he could snag a chopper to LZ Jane, to which he's told it'll be ready in 60 minutes. So, while they're waiting for his ride, Habershaw decides to treat Chicky to lunch at the officers' club and introduces him to his buddy. As they're chowing down, Habershaw can't contain his excitement and asks if he can spill the beans about what's going down at LZ Jane.
You can trust us.
Come on, Habershaw. You can trust us. He wouldn't be a very good CIA agent, now would he?
That's true. Not that I am a CIA agent.
Give us just a hint. Tell us without telling us.
Trying to keep things under wraps, Chicky suddenly gets all serious and tells him he's just delivering some beer to a friend.
Beer? To who? A friend in Bravo Company. First day of cab?
Keg?
Cans.
Wow, it's gonna be a shit show, isn't it?
Before Cheeky leaves, the lieutenant asks Cheeky to put in a good word for him at the CIA so that they will consider his candidacy for joining the intelligence. Once the ride is ready, Cheeky flies over a large expanse of farmland along with other soldiers and heads out to the war zone. Once he arrives at the base, Cheeky uses the same CIA cover story to have the commanding officers recall his friend Rick from the battle zone.
Dugan, report to TOC ASAP. Over.
Right now? That's 200 meters and our situation's hot. Over.
Right now.
While Rick runs to the cabin under a barrage of bullets, Chicky asks to cover him with a tent as a surprise for his friend.
You guys cover me with this.
No.
When Rick arrives at the cabin, Chicky jumps out of where he is hiding, startling his friend. When he realizes Chicky had dragged him through gunfire for a silly cause, Rick gets angry and begins to yell at his friend. Telling him that he was going to get himself killed, Rick warns Chicky to abandon his fool's errand.
You mean to tell me this asshole's a civilian?
Yes, sir.
Is he nuts?
I don't know, Chicky. Are you nuts?
What?
No.
Rick's sergeant drops the bombshell that Chicky is now his responsibility and orders him to take the little guy along. Despite his protests, Rick is bluntly informed that he has no say in the matter.
What's this for?
To shoot the bad guys, Dodo. It looks like you're gonna be taken for prisoner. Shoot yourself or they'll torture you for info.
For info? Hold on, I don't have any info.
They don't know that, asshole.
No. Bad idea, Sarge. He's got a better chance of shooting one of us than one of them.
What are you talking about? I know guns. I was in the military.
Where'd you serve?
Massachusetts.
Yeah, give me that.
Rick is left with no option but to dash across no man's land, with Chicky in tow, who's whimpering like a little girl. After dodging the flying bullets, the two men finally make it to their post and rejoin the other soldiers.
Who's this handjob?
It's my next door neighbor. He brought me a beer.
What the hell does that mean?
It means he jumped on a freighter in New York, came all the way out here, bring me a beer.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me you don't have to be here and you're here?
Yeah.
While Chicky hides in the barricades, Rick and the other soldiers begin to fire at the enemy until they're all cleared out. When the noise calms down and they finally take a break, Rick asks for some beer and passes it along to his friends. In a somber mood, Rick informs Chicky that their friend, Reynolds, was killed in action. The next morning, Rick wakes Chicky up and announces that they're heading out on patrol, pleading with him to catch a ride home on the incoming helicopter. In a moment of camaraderie, Chicky offers the men one last round of beers. As a parting gift, one of the soldiers snaps a photo of the group and presents it to Chicky. After a few minutes of waiting, Chicky spots a chopper arriving and eagerly hops in, only to be taken aback when two men board to escort a prisoner. As they soar to their next destination, Chicky watches in a mix of horror and disbelief as a CIA agent interrogates the prisoner, resorting to the classic throwing out of the helicopter technique. After a series of terrified screams, the prisoner finally spills the beans, but to Chicky's astonishment, the agent still gives him the boot and kicks him out of the helicopter. When they finally arrive at the base, Chicky tries to get off the helicopter, but is stopped by the agent who asks him who he is.
Just a tourist, like you. Who's your travel agent? Same as yours. I'll tell the boss you say hi.
He heads into the office and begins to ask the man at the front desk to get him a flight to Saigon. Telling him that there wouldn't be any flight until tomorrow afternoon, the man informs Chicky to go to the airbase 16 miles away. After speaking to his superior in the other room, the man returns and offers to give him a ride himself. Finding the situation suspicious, Chicky goes to the bathroom and jumps out through the window to observe the man waiting by the car. As he watches, he spots the CIA agent hiding in the back of the car and takes off running for the woods. Despite the agents giving chase, Chicky manages to evade them by flattening himself on the ground, trying his best not to let out a scream as a centipede decides to make him its playground. Once the coast is clear, Chicky heads for the hitchhiking route to get back to base. While wandering through the jungle, he finds Tom Minogue's cap on the ground. He recalls his dialogue with Tom before the latter left for Vietnam. Tom was afraid to go to the war and was not sure if it was the right decision, but Chicky cheered him up, stating that he would be doing the right thing. As Chicky continues along on his adventure, he encounters a Vietnamese child who promptly bursts into tears at the sight of him. Feeling horrible about himself, Chicky hurries off while the kid's mother swoops her up and dashes into the jungle like they've just seen a ghost. After a few hours of nervously tiptoeing through the wilderness, Chicky gets the shock of his life when he stumbles upon a herd of elephants, only to then run smack into a group of soldiers on patrol. As he raises his hands begging them not to shoot, he realizes amongst the soldiers is his friend from the neighborhood, Kevin.
Chicky freaking Donahue?
In a panic, Chicky spills the beans to his buddy about how he's convinced the CIA is hot on his tail, recounting the wild chain of events that led him to this point.
Am I dead? Why are you in the middle of the jungle in the middle of Vietnam?
Long story, but the CIA, they're after me, man. They're trying to kill me.
What are you talking about?
They were throwing people out of helicopters.
How'd you know CIA?
Because I was in the chopper with them.
Wait, you're CIA?
No. They thought that I was one of them.
He pleads with Kevin to take him to the airbase, and after some serious arm twisting, Kevin reluctantly caves in, even though he's supposed to be fixing choppers back at the very place Chicky just bolted from. Once they finally make it to the base, Kevin pulls some strings to help Chicky snag a chopper bound for Saigon. As the chopper heads out, Chicky throws his friend a beer. After finally reaching Saigon, Chicky hauls himself down to the harbor, only to discover that his ticket home has sailed off without him, thanks to a tip-off about a surprise raid. The dispatcher advises him to visit the U.S. Embassy. Chicky notices that traffic officer he met a few days ago. He asks him how to get to the embassy, and the guy leaves his spot to show Chicky the way. On the way, they have a conversation. The guy says he'd like to see the U.S. when the war is over. Just out of politeness, Chicky advises him to visit New York first, and he'll buy him a beer. But the naive guy takes his words to heart and asks for his address.
What New York street you live on?
You serious? You really coming?
Unless you're not serious.
No, I'm serious. Yeah, I'm more serious than you.
His sincerity impresses Chicky, and he writes down his address and phone number in the guy's notebook. They say goodbye to each other, promising to meet again in New York. Chicky storms the U.S. Embassy and spills his guts to the lady at the front desk, only to learn that his captain left a message.
The captain said if you're not dead, he'll take you back on the ship if you can catch up with it.
Well, I'm not dead, so...
Not dead.
So sorry. Hold on. What's going on? How do I catch up with it?
You sit.
After a long wait, Chicky gets rudely awakened by the desk clerk, who tells him that she can snag him a flight to Manila the next day. Heading back to the hotel he'd visited earlier, he stumbles upon the same journalists at the bar, knocking back a few. Joining their merry little gathering, he regales them with tales of his escapades in the war zone, whipping out a snapshot for dramatic effect and leaving them utterly shocked.
You're serious?
Impressed by Chicky's courage, one of the journalists by the name of Arthur takes a picture of him and offers to buy the young man drinks.
Chicky Donahue is drinking on me.
The two engage in a heated conversation. Arthur explains that the war was being led by politicians who were sending kids like Chicky's friends to die on the front lines. While they're conversing, the two men begin to hear gunshots and are startled by the sound of a loud explosion. Following Arthur out of the hotel, the two men try to get to the embassy, but find out from one of the American soldiers that Saigon is under attack.
You gotta get to the embassy. Forget it. There's fighting on every block and Charlie has the embassy.
As Chicky approached one of the jeeps, an explosion suddenly blows off one of the soldiers' hands, leaving Chicky in shock. Amidst dodging gunfire and bullets, Chicky finally reached the embassy, only to witness an armed truck blast a hole in the embassy walls. During the panic, Chicky spots that traffic officer he had spoken to earlier, the one who had promised to visit him in New York, dead on the street. Despite his efforts to help, Arthur yelled at him to get off the street, informing him that the man was already dead. The two men successfully break into an abandoned house and spend the night there. The next morning, they make their way to the U.S. Embassy, where Arthur captures images of the devastation. When other journalists mention to Arthur that the enemy breached the compound through the exploded wall.
How did they get in here?
VC sappers blew the wall open.
But that wall? Our guys blew that up after the VC was already in here.
In the distance, a large explosion erupts from the military base, prompting Arthur and Chicky to make their way towards it. They find a car with the keys in the ignition. Along the journey, Chicky is deeply affected by the sight of the deceased on the streets and the grieving countrymen. Upon reaching the base, he hurries inside and locates his friend Bobby in the infirmary.
Heard a rumor you were coming bringing beers, some shit.
Yeah.
After exchanging pleasantries, Bobby informs Chicky that the entire country is on lockdown, with only military planes permitted to take off. Despite Chicky offering Bobby a drink, the traumatized soldier declines, stating that beer won't make him feel better. The guy recalls the lieutenant who asked him to get a job in the CIA and calls the poor guy asking for help getting on a flight from Vietnam. Chicky then pleads with his friend to give him a ride to the airbase, recalling Habershaw's promise to assist him with anything he needs. He also extends the offer for Arthur to come along, but the journalist refuses.
I don't want to get out of Vietnam.
What are you talking about?
I'm a war correspondent, chick. This is a war.
This ain't a war no more. It's mass murder.
That's what war is, chick. It's one giant crime scene.
The lieutenant meets them at the airbase and again asks him to put in a good word for him at the CIA. This time, Chicky decides to sincerely admit to the lieutenant that he is not a CIA agent.
I'm not CIA.
Yeah, right.
No, really, I'm not.
So, what are you?
I'm nothing.
You guys are the best.
As Chicky prepares to board his plane, Bobby informs him that they have found Tommy's dead body. Devastated by the news, Chicky bids farewell to his friend and boards a plane to Manila. Seated alone beside the row of coffins, Chicky is overwhelmed by a sense of dread. Upon finally arriving home, Chicky is welcomed by Red, who spots him walking down the street and invites him into the bar to meet his other friends. Overwhelmed by his experiences, he confides in his friends and the Colonel, expressing his disbelief in their actions in Vietnam.
I'm not so sure we're saving the world this time.
Well, right or wrong, it sounds like you need a drink.
Despite the Colonel's offer to buy him a drink, Chicky explains that he has something to attend to first and heads to Tommy's house. As Chicky knocks on the door and Tommy's mother answers, he becomes emotional and confesses that he was the one who had encouraged Tommy to enlist. He is burdened by the guilt of his friend's death. Tommy's mother forgives him and embraces him, demonstrating that she does not hold him responsible. Chicky then heads to the park where dozens of candles were lit for the fallen soldiers and runs into his sister. After telling him never to do anything like that again and informing him how worried the family is, Christine sits next to him, hugging him gently. Telling her that he plans to take a new direction in his life, Chicky hands his sister a beer and tells her he had saved the last one for her. As the movie concludes, it is revealed that Collins, Rick, Kevin, and Bobby all returned home safely. Chicky ultimately graduated from high school and later from Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. He pursued a career as a construction worker, one of the New York tunnel builders, and eventually assumed the role of their legislative and political director. I hope you enjoyed the recap. You can also watch other recaps on the channel.